Hi, it's Tiffany, Lorraine, Galloway, certified high performance coach with another episode of the Resilient Mother podcast. Today, I have with me Jen. We're going to talk about resilient presence, being in the here and now and really showing up for your life. We did identity, so you can know who you were. We did elevate, which is setting yourself up for success by building your community and setting high goals for yourself. Now it's really living into it. And that's what we want to talk about. No matter what we face, no matter what's going on in our lives, we can be great mothers, great people, and raise the next resilient generation. Jen, thank you so much for being here. I love this idea of pro-resilience, proactive resilience. Please tell me more.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I love all that you just said, and that's part of my mission as well. Pro-resilience is the idea of preparing yourself to be resilient for the future. And it can all start with this wonderful framework that was developed by an organizational psychologist named Linda Hoops. And I've actually taken it and adapted it for one of my focus, which is to support chronic illness patients and their caregivers, as I am both of those things, to build their resilience for the future. And if you don't feel like you're resilient yet, that's okay, because there's ways to repair and prevent burnout and build sort of your resilience benchmark. And then from there, prepare for the future with some other resilience tools and strategies.
So with that, how would you define resilience?
Well, I would define resilience as maintaining high levels of effectiveness and well-being while dealing with high levels of challenge and disruption.
Okay, say that one more time. That was so good.
Maintaining high levels of effectiveness and well-being while dealing with high levels of challenge and disruption. So it's the and, right? It's like you're in it and you are powerful and empowered and you can deal with it.
And when did you discover this concept of resilience for yourself?
Well, so I am a 3-decade kidney transplant survivor. I've been managing it since I was 15. I've had 2 living donors, which I'm very grateful for. So I started doing it, I think, innately when I was a teenager, but didn't really think about it much because you're immortal when you're a teenager. And then when I came upon needing my second transplant, it was a little bit more like, okay, how am I going to do this? I was married. I had a 4-year-old at the time. How am I going to do this? Really leaned into whatever was inside of me that I couldn't quite explain. And then when my daughter was 7 in 2015, she was diagnosed with a low-grade brain tumor, which we've been managing well for the past 8 years, but I became a caregiver as well for not just myself, but for my daughter. And that one brought me to my knees. So that's where I experienced the whole idea of falling down and then needing to pull yourself back up. And I had to keep doing that. And I just realized I can't do it this way anymore. And people kept asking me, well, how are you so resilient? And at the time, I didn't feel like it, right? Because I'm on my knees and they can't tell.
Right.
So I started doing more research, compassion fatigue, compassion resilience, resilience overall, and came across a framework by Linda Hoops that she took into organizations called Prosilience, or Proactive Resilience. And as I read her book, I was like, my God, she has put words to what I've been embodying and doing since I was a teenager and didn't even know it. And now I have the tools and the language to take that and share with others so that we can have high effectiveness and well-being and deal with those high levels of challenge, adversity, and disruption.
Yeah, it's not the old definition of burnout, which is just make it happen, even if you burn out, even if you crash. That's not the resilience we're talking about.
White knuckle it, keep going. No, thank you. That hurts my hands. I don't want to do that anymore.
What are specific techniques that you use that you really like that have helped you and helped your children?
Oh, well, so the first one that I work with for myself, as well as my daughter, and then other caregivers and patients I work with, is really taking a look at the 4 types of human energy. and how we manage them. Because without that energy, we can't fuel our resilience.
Yeah.
So I start there and I talk about, okay, what is your physical energy? What is your mental energy? How about your emotional energy and your spiritual energy? And once you have those, not even balance, but like an awareness of them, and you're able to build them some and keep refueling them and refilling them, then you can really get into some of the other building blocks of resilience, which are calming self-regulation, choosing strategies, and then also like really engaging your resilience muscles. In this framework, we've all been born with 7 resilience muscles. And so once we learn to manage our energy to fuel our resilience and self-regulate, then we can really use specific strategies for choosing how we're going to deal with challenges. And then we can choose which of our resilience muscles are easiest for us to access so that we can move through that challenge without burning ourselves out.
I love starting with energy. I don't think it's something that we talk about enough, because I think people just think they are this energy or they are this feeling, and they take on the identity of something that's just biologically happening, and they act like they have no control over it. And the truth is you do, and you have a responsibility for your energy no matter what you're facing or what's going on. And so maybe having a background in theater, we would have to change energy time. Energy was the thing you changed when you were on stage. You became a different person when you came on stage. And I didn't realize that was kind of a superpower, because then when I approach situations, I think, okay, what energy do I want to bring to this room that I'm going into, or to this conversation, or into this relationship, realizing that I have the ability to choose. I have the ability to choose how I show up. And maybe I'm having a bad day, but it's my responsibility to know how I get myself out of that bad mood or get out of that emotion I don't want. But I think the key is you have to be willing to be present with the stuff that's messy and that's painful, and take responsibility for it. For example, I know I have PTSD, which we talked about before we got on, and we have some different things that we're dealing with. And I had to own that. I had to own, oh, okay, I have these triggers. They are mine. They're my responsibility to deal with, not anybody else's. So what do I want to do about it? And when you realize that you're in control of your thoughts, your actions, your deeds, that's that empowerment we're talking about. But it's this inner work that maybe you weren't taught, or maybe you weren't allowed to develop, this like intuition of yourself. And that's my kid at my door who's not supposed to be there. Just one second. And so just being able to recognize you're human. And being human means you're going to have highs and you're going to have lows. And you get to decide what direction you're going to go with those, and what meaning you're going to make out of those things, what lessons you're going to take, what wisdom you're going to develop. And I think that's an important part of resilience, because it's not just bouncing back from the hard times, it's making yourself better each time. So you bounce back faster. So you learn from those lessons and you build that strength.
Yeah, I agree. And I love how you brought up working with those difficult emotions and feelings. And that is one of the energies that I help people learn to manage, that emotional energy. And there are several, techniques to do that. I'm sure, almost like all of them, because people in this line of work, that's what we do. And we get to live and breathe it every day and embody it, and then support people as they go through that. So I think that also what I really love is how you're bringing a focus to presence. And with that, it also equals to me embodiment, and that choice of what energy with which do I want to show up. And I can be in a bad energy or a not so serving energy, and acknowledge the piece of being human, and pair that with, and how do I want to experience this regardless of that?
Yes. Yes. One previous podcast guest that we had on had survived cancer 3 times. And she talks so much about that. And it really taught me with her resilience of just, what did I want to make this experience? How did I want to experience this? And instead of, there's still going to be that shock, and there's going to be that initial grief, and there's that loss that's a part of it. Then everyone's going to have a very unique journey, and your way is not wrong. The point is, you have the power to go find out what works for you. You get to go figure out what tools work for you that get you to where you want to be. And sometimes I think especially being a woman of faith, when you let God be a part of the process and there's this more unseen world, the inner world, the spiritual world, the energy, things that we don't slow down enough in our Western culture to pay attention to. There's a lot more healing properties in that work than there are on some of the outside things that we're told should work and that people see. So it's a work that everyone sees. You may feel invisible in your process of figuring yourself out, but know that it's going to be worth it in the end, because not only are you healing yourself, you're being an example to the next generation of the new places we can go with this. We're headed in the right direction for a more holistic lifestyle and way that we live. And I want to certainly encourage that, because it opens up so much more possibilities when we feel whole, when we're embodying our body, when we're paying attention. We can add more value. We can show up with that full energy, really embrace the gifts that we were meant to give.
I love that. And I don't always like to say that we experience our trials and such because it helps highlight our gifts and maybe why we're here, because I also like to check my privilege and know that maybe not everyone can access that when they're going through difficult times, because, you know, if they don't have family support or they don't have their very basic human needs taken care of, it's difficult then maybe to get to this place right away. I do believe everyone will get there. But when you bring up that connection with a sense of meaning and purpose, that's exactly the definition of this spiritual energy that I am talking about. So if you are a person of faith, or if you are a person of, maybe you look more at morals and integrity, and that's your connection to something larger than yourself, having that identified for yourself and having your own tips and tricks to refuel that is exactly what's going to help fuel your energy.
And if you haven't tried it before, it might be weird. I know, like, the first time I meditated, I couldn't get my mind to be quiet. So I thought I was doing it wrong. Like, they're like, this is supposed to be peaceful. And I feel like I'm at war in my head. And that's the first time you've done it, you have to work the muscle. And sometimes it feels like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And that's where a coach, where support, having the right community, or knowing you're that for your kid is really important. You're not meant to do it alone.
No, definitely not. When I first started meditating, I had to get really used to the hello thought, goodbye thought. Like, hello thought, I see you. Okay, you can't stay there. I was at this awesome meditation weekend years ago. If you've heard of Deepak Chopra, he has a right-hand man named Roger Gabriel, who is actually like their chief meditation officer and whatnot for the Chopra Center. But Roger Gabriel was here where I live, and I got to go to a weekend meditation retreat with him, very intimate. And he was sharing all of this information with us, and we're on the edge of our seats. We're like, yes, tell us, guide us, lead us, right? And then finally he said, do you know what enlightenment means? We're all like, oh my gosh, no, tell me. And he's like, lighten up. I'm like, oh, because we don't need to work so hard to enjoy and find joy in life.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
So true. And I think that's where, if you can get comfortable with not being stuck in your past or too worried about the future, and get comfortable with the present and just accepting your control of yourself and just this moment. Don't burden yourself with all these things you're trying to carry back here, or living in fear about what you can't see. Just be right here. And I think that's also so important with our children, whatever they're going through, special needs or not. Like, when we can meet them where they're at and be present, that's when we're going to have the most impact, because that's when we're really showing up and being that safe space for them.
Right. Yeah. I remember trying to do a lot of different corralling of big emotions when my daughter was a toddler and whatnot. And a lot of it didn't work for her, because a lot of it is, okay, separateness. Separate yourself from the problem behavior. And finally, I ran into love and logic and some of the other things that was more mindful parenting. And that really did work better for us and our family. And so that's what I've tried to carry through, getting to be a teenager. So, and a pretty special one.
And where they're at in development is huge. It's so important to understand child development because it lets you step back and remember, I'm the adult. This is a little baby human that is not got the adult brain and logic yet. This is the stage that their brain is developing and learning. So that's why I think some parents struggle is that you can't treat them like an adult. And you may have brought parenting from the past into the present that doesn't serve. And then the other one is just like acknowledging who your child is as an individual as they develop and realizing they're going to change. They're going to change what they like. Like my girls have completely changed their favorite color like 3 times. And it used to be so easy. It was like purple and pink. Got it. And now it's like, okay, what color are you on? Like, what do you like? But I'm glad I've allowed that space because how are they going to learn how to be present if they don't know themselves? I have to give them room to embody themselves, to develop a voice, and to be able to even tell me when I'm off with, that doesn't work for me, Mom. I'm not into that anymore, Mom. That's for you. That's not for me. And, I knew that. And I would say as a teenager, holy cow, did I get it from one? But every time I would remind myself, okay, 1, she trusts me with this and knows I will still love her. And 2, she's developing an opinion and a voice. This will serve my child well.
Right.
And instead of, you want to fix it, like you want to just make it better, you want to take the big emotions away. You can't do that. You have to let them build their own resilient muscle and who they are, what's true for them.
And thankfully they can do it in a safe space, with us before we launch them out into the world, which I think is also a really important thing to remember. And one thing that I took from a lot of the reading and study I do is from the book, The 4 Agreements. And one of the first ones says, don't take anything personally. And man, when she was younger, if she was misbehaving, I took that personally. Or I thought like, everyone's going to see me as a bad mother and all of those things. And man, I have totally let that stuff go because I try to, respect feelings and help really mold how you can respectfully share those feelings. And most of it is because I finally don't take it personally. It has nothing to do with me.
Well, I think the key to that you just said is we think they're a reflection of us. Yes and no. I mean, you're still the mom, you're still the individual, and what your child does, they still have their agency. And so you can do the best parenting in the entire world, do all the right things, have the great situation, and still have a child go completely awry.
Oh, yes.
They have a choice. And so we just know you're doing enough. For any mom listening to this, the fact that you care and you're listening to something like this says a heck of a lot about the kind of resilient mother that you are working towards or being in this moment. And those examples, the kid might go away for a while, but if you implement these things and be that example when they're young, they will come back to it. And I think what you hit on too, it's so important to make the mistakes at home in a safe space because then they have littler consequences versus going out into the world unprepared in an area of life. And then the consequences are so much bigger and last so much longer.
I agree. I like to share with those I work with and also with my daughter when maybe things aren't going exactly the way she hopes. I really can't say everything happens for a reason because I don't really know why she needed to have a brain tumor and all of those things. Well, one, none of us were guaranteed an easy go at life. We get to choose how we show up to those challenges. But I like to share the idea of trust in the unfolding. Not like sit back and don't do anything. And definitely be sure to take personal responsibility for your choices and how you show up in the world. But just trust that whatever is happening can be for your highest good if you decide to look at it that way. And you might not say that at the time. Like, man, when I was having some triggers pulled, when she was younger, and I just started certification for life coaching because I realized I couldn't show up in life the way I was doing it anymore. I was completely burned out. I was on my knees. I literally just breathed for 3 months. that was how I became more embodied and I stayed present, because something would happen. Like I'd be making dinner and she had requested pork chops earlier in the day or something. And then I made pork chops because why not? And then she shows up and doesn't want pork chops. And again, she was way young, starts throwing a tantrum. And I would just get like this inside, all shaky. And like, I can't do that anymore. And so I would just put up my boundary, my invisible boundary shield, and breathe until I regulated enough to show up in a way where I could actually communicate with her, rather than, the more difficult ways of yelling or discipline or those sort of things. Because those big feelings that she was having were not even related to pork chops. That was something else, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't have gotten there unless I was able to self-regulate, manage my energy, be in the present, and breath was what saved me.
Well, and it's such a simple thing. I think people are looking for the magic pill, the big answers, and breath is huge. And it's interesting today because of all the electronics and everything, our posture, if we cave in our rib cage, we're actually all not getting the oxygen that we need. Like alignment and yoga and things that get us back to the posture, or taking a break every 45 minutes from the screen and different things, it's so important. We weren't meant to be in front of electronics all day long, just as a side note. And so that's a struggle too, because they pull us away from being present. All the things that are trying to get our attention can make us completely step out of our body and not even be present. We can be in the room all watching a movie together or something, but are we really together? Are we interacting? Are we really bonding? I don't think so. And I think it's getting back to simple things like the breath, being outside, just meditation, journaling. I mean, simple things. And if we can teach our kids that, really, I think that's the war right now that's out there. It's not so much about survival. A lot of our needs are met. For everyone. I know there's lots going on in the world today, but so much of it is our mind. So much of it is our well-being that we're fighting for, so we can be present and we can enjoy our lives. But also, there's more opportunities out there more than ever. Look at the work that you're doing, taking your struggle, your mess, and making it a message, and how many people are doing that. And then they love what they do, and they show up in the world so differently, so full of light, so full of possibility. And that gives permission for other people to do the same. And I really think that's a different level of resilience when we're able to really step into what's possible.
I agree. And what you're touching on right there is one of the resilience muscles that we're all born with, which is the positivity resilience muscle. That doesn't mean do you know the reference Pollyanna? That doesn't mean being happy-go-lucky, happy all the time. I think I'm really showing my age, but it means that, we are able to see possibilities and hope even in challenging situations. And with especially the caregivers that I work with, that's really difficult for them to access. It takes a lot of their energy to access the positivity muscle, and that's okay, because we have 6 other ones that can support you if you decide then you also want to build up your positivity muscle. And there are specific actions and habits that you can build to bring more of that into your life. Like Deb Dana is a wonderful psychiatrist who's been sharing a bunch on social media and podcasts and everything lately, talking about glimmers. So the opposite of a trigger is a glimmer. So what is your glimmer for the day is one way I start out all of my sessions. So what's a glimmer today? It doesn't have to be big. Is it that you saw a butterfly? Is it that you had a really great iced coffee? That can be your glimmer. And joy is a form of resilience as well.
Yeah. Well, and what I've learned that's really interesting, I came across and mentioned probably in a previous episode, is some places in the brain can't hold opposite emotions at the same time.
Yes.
So if you can put gratitude in you, it all of a sudden knocks out anxiety. If you put something positive, the negative is knocked out. And so you are rewiring your brain with every choice that you make, with every thought and action that you're doing. That's why it's also very, very important to be careful of what you let in, because people underestimate that. If you close your eyes, imagine something, or if you watch something, maybe you don't feel traumatized, but you are. Watching something violent still tells your brain that it's violent. And if you do too much exposure to something, you become desensitized. And then people are kind of seeking that next hit, that next dopamine drip, that next thing. And that's where addiction starts being fed. And it's really easy to fall into today, especially if you're trying to cope with something hard.
Mm-hmm.
You can fall into that if you don't find a positive outlet. Because I will never say, and I think it's important to note this, if you're not dealing with something well, it's not that you're going to just stop doing that thing. Whatever that action is that you're doing to cope, you're doing it to fulfill a need. So if you're going to stop doing something, you have to replace it with something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like replacing the negative thoughts with the positive thoughts. It's also true of maybe your nighttime routine isn't working out as well, or your morning routine, or that trigger, you haven't replaced what you're going to do with it. You can't just stop it. It doesn't work. You still have to take some kind of action one way or the another with it. And a lot of what we're talking about, all these tools, the thing is finding what works for you. Every single human being is unique. Their story, what's going to work for them. So you have to give room for kind of being excited about the curiosity of finding that out for yourself and letting it evolve.
Definitely.
And that in our children.
Oh, right. And I'm getting way better inviting my daughter to challenge me in a respectful way, the same way now I do with my clients. And I said, I'm going to share some ideas and some thoughts. If this is like hitting you and you're like, nah, it doesn't feel right. Like, I want to hear, because we're not going to stop there. We're going to then ask, what is yours? Like, if this Prosilience thing isn't mine, well, I'm not going to just like leave you on the wayside, right? We're going to say, what is your way to have a high level of effectiveness and well-being in the face of challenge? It doesn't have to be my way. These are just some tools to get you going.
Exactly.
Let's just figure it out.
Yeah, you can have your own toolbox, your own roadmap. You're going to write your own book, your own story. And then every kid's different. I know my 3 that are at home right now are completely different. And I'm so glad somebody told me that that's normal and that's okay. Or I would think I was doing something very wrong, because one started talking at 9 months old. The other one didn't talk till later. One potty trained easily. The other one, it took Daniel Tiger videos for some reason for it to stick. No idea why it had to be that. And then my son too, like he's this like reading early and doing different things early. And then he's a boy. Holy cow, our boy is different.
I've heard.
Like, 2 girls and him, I'm like, whoa. So I have 3 brothers. You'd think I'd be prepared, but
well, when you're like ultimately responsible for them, I think it becomes a whole different thing for a while.
Yeah, exactly. And so I respect them on their journey, and I just try to be that what the word I'm looking for, like that foundation, that pillar, that safe space is the one I think I keep coming to with this month's interviews, because I want them to know their truth so innately that they get to step into it. And as a mom, for me, it's really important for me to notice when they're into something. If they're into a certain book series, I'll go buy the whole book series. If my little guy's been into numbers, I'll start exposing them to more number stuff. But I have to be paying attention, or I miss the opportunity to give them that learning experience when they're interested in it, because that's when they're choosing to learn. And it's important for them, in my mind, just like learning how to embody your body and everything else, to understand that you can learn and teach yourself anything that you want.
Yes.
Because then there's no limits. And those are things that nobody can take away from you. The work that you do, the internal work that we're talking about with being present with yourself, once you've gotten your groove, very little things will knock you off of it.
That's true.
And that's that resilience of back to center, back to
in the alignment
you've heard. And so do you work with kids and caregivers, or do you do a mix? Or
well, so over my last 7 years of coaching, I have worked with quite a few different age groups, from teens all the way to seniors. And then I have been focusing right now on groups of caregivers for children. And then also branching out in other ways, because there are quite a few more resources growing for caregivers about how to actually care for your loved one, and not so many on how to care for yourself as a caregiver. I mean, I mean, same thing as being a mother. If someone says, oh, be sure to take care of yourself, like, I'm going to throw something at you. Like, what do you even mean? What do you mean by that? And so that's why I love having specific tips, tricks, habits that you can build to share that actually fill and replenish your energy. Because when I wouldn't say something to you and be like, oh, take care of yourself. I could say, oh, hey, do you think that you might want to refuel your spiritual energy some? How are you finding your joy right now, even in the hard times? Because that can actually boost you so that you're able to sleep better, want to move, take care of some of your nutrition. And also, as you do those two things, it's going to be easier for you to be with difficult feelings during a challenge.
Yeah.
The other thing you had mentioned earlier that I think is one of the first things I start with, right, is awareness is key.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Observation and awareness. And then from there, I just always like to share the reminder that breath is like a remote control, the pause button for our brain, as you had mentioned.
Yeah.
Right. And then, so what do you need to do to reset that feeling, that thought, that habit? Is it possibly some deep breathing? Possibly. But yeah, I do a lot, especially with some neurodivergent caregivers, as well as kids or teens, and being able to have a set framework that you can follow seems to really support most people in that. And so that's why I'm so grateful that I've been able to translate the framework and apply it to so many different areas of life and clients, and really start to see them being able to enjoy life more, because that's my main message. Don't wait until things are better to live better.
Oh, I love that.
We just don't all have that much time.
No, life is short. Let's enjoy it. You're meant to enjoy it. You're meant to have joy in this life, and you're meant to find it. And you don't have to wait for happiness. It can be right now.
Yeah.
You can choose it right now. It's you create it. You get
I remember being in the hospital for my daughter for about a month. She had to have a major surgery, and we were there for recovery for a month. And that sucks, living in a hospital for a month. And it was during COVID. So you couldn't have visitors. It was a lot, right? But I found my joy. It may not have been the best joy, because it was, it's lunchtime. I get to order a small Coca-Cola to go with my lunch. And you know what? For that month, that was my joy. Or, you know what? We get to put our masks on and walk down and pick out a new book to look at together, or puzzle. Finding those very small moments that can help increase those moments of joy.
Yeah. And I think that's what we're talking about today. It's really these simple things that unlock the bigger things. And asking the right questions, and willing to ask yourself the right questions, or get someone in your circle that can help you ask the right questions to discover how you can show up resiliently present in your life and have that joy that you're seeking on a more regular basis, no matter what comes your way, and being able to come back to it.
I love
Thank
that.
you so much.
You're welcome.
Where can people find you if they want to work with you?
I am on social media. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jen Fredericks, Fredericks. I'm also on Instagram at jfredwi. And then also on Facebook, Jen Fredericks, Prosilience Coach, Prosilience. And I'm also available on DM on any of those, or, PM. I also have a website, prosilienccoach.com. There's an opportunity to sign up for a monthly prosilience or resilience building tip. So I'd like to share some of what I've learned as a patient and a caregiver to those who are looking for, a little support.
That's wonderful. And we'll make sure to include all those links somewhere here below. So look around. It's here somewhere. I promise. All right. Thank you, listeners. Please remember that you can be resilient under all circumstances, and show up for your life how you want to show up, for you, for your kids, and for your dreams, for that matter. I believe in you. I believe in yourself. God bless. And we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.